Talking about an interesting topic that I think has actually really helped me in this process of finding who I am and finding my place in the interior design world. Today we're going to talk about why traveling makes us more creative, and it's kind of an interesting topic that I really kind of found a place with during an interview that I did a few weeks ago, and I really discovered that there's a real big connection to traveling and how it makes us creative and how it kind of gets everything fitting in place. There's actually a lot of scientific studies that have been done that really prove the theories behind that, and it's actually pretty interesting what you would find. Coming from how I used to be, I used to joke and say I don't even think I could draw a stick figure right now, to being able to create custom closets, envision fabrics, how they work with one another, and how colors can work in a space. It's such a huge transition, and I kind of wanted to find what made such a difference from where I used to feel like that I wasn't very creative, to now really being able to take a vision from my mind and actually put it in place and make it come to life. So the first one I want to talk about is something that's actually pretty important. It inspires productivity. How many people live in a place that it might be the same city or even the same neighborhood that you've lived in for so long? You have the same habits, you go to the same coffee place, your life is really mundane and nothing out of the ordinary. Do you find that maybe it's a little hard to be creative, and you might see something on TV that you just absolutely love and you figure, I could never redo this on my own, I'm not creative enough, I can't make it happen? Well, that's because your everyday habits, they really form how your thinking is, and it's all a mental game. If you don't have something new that actually inspires you or kind of takes you out of that comfort zone, it can be blocking your creativity. The best way to describe it is whenever you find yourself working for long periods of time, you haven't had a vacation, you haven't really had any quality time off to go and venture somewhere new. Do you find yourself just kind of in a slump and figuring that I can't make this project happen, I don't know how to make it come to life? It may be that your body and your mind is really craving a burst of creativity, and it'll keep you on point with what you need to do in any project. So once you take those vacations, it's kind of like how you feel physically. You can have a little bit of a break, you don't feel so tied down. Your brain needs that same break. Usually when you take a vacation, it's the best to just turn off all electronic devices, just kind of get away from everything that bogs you down mentally, and to allow your brain to really process life and experience new things, and really open up those different compartments that are closed on a daily basis by all of our normal day-to-day tasks that we do. And when I say travel, I always tell people, don't just travel to where the touristy spots are. Of course, you could go to Cancun, or you could go to Jamaica and stay at all the nice resorts and do things like that, but what's the fun in there? Somebody's already taken their creative vision and put it in place, and you're not really jumping into the culture, seeing how they live real life. You're kind of almost in a fantasy world, but when you go and do touristy things, you're taking an adventure on a vision that somebody else had. So I always say, when you travel, try to go to places that are kind of off the beaten path. If anybody's familiar with any of the shows that Anthony Bourdain does, I absolutely love the work that he puts out there, because he always takes people to places that you wouldn't think of going. You know, it might be a small mom and pop coffee shop, or an adventure up a mountain with some of the local people who they do this on a daily basis, and they take you through what their normal things are and experience life through their eyes. This is amazing because it awakens you up to so much that the world has to offer, and I think it's such a beautiful thing. Another way that traveling can make you creative is it cultivates an open mind. I find a lot of people that I've met that lived in New York City, they might live in the areas where there's such a huge amount of different cultures in one area. Just hearing their stories, it's almost as if they travel all the time because they're in deep with all different kinds of cultures. They're looking at life in a different perspective. They're usually a lot more creative. So if you live in a city where you have that opportunity, I say go and find these off the beaten path restaurants that has a different type of food that you've never experienced. Look at the decor that they have around. See how people might live in that different culture and really look at all those little small pieces and how they come together. You'd be amazed at how that kind of unlocks the little compartments in your mind of maybe a new adventure that you can go on. You might be inspired by something you smelled or something you tasted at the restaurant. And so it kind of helps you to be, again, open-minded and look at how other people live. It's so easy in this day and age to really be locked into what you're used to and how you've always done things or how you and your friends have always lived life. But one of the most amazing treasures is to really dig deep into somebody else's culture and put yourself in their shoes for a day. It definitely makes you a little bit more humble, but also makes you want different things in life. You might have had a picture of how you wanted your house to look, but maybe by taking a vacation, and you can take those little pieces of your adventure that you went on, and it may inspire a completely different scheme for your home that you never imagined possible. And that, again, opens up the mind to, there's so many different things in this world. You get to interact with new people and new cultures. I've said this before, I have met some of the most amazing people that this world has to offer. And they don't live in the United States, and they don't live right down the street from me. They live in completely different worlds that sometimes you think, wow, people really live like that. We become so sheltered and think, this is the only way that everybody lives. All I know is this. But it would really surprise you to see how other countries live on a daily basis. What are their normal habits? Where are the places that they go to? Just kind of digging deep into that culture, it just opens your mind to so many different ways of life. And I say just immerse yourself in the culture. And again, don't just do the touristy things. It's so easy to have your whole trip planned out for you and just kind of go through the motions, but how fun would it be to actually go to a place that you're unfamiliar with? And it's a little nerve-wracking and scary to go somewhere that you may not know the language or you may not know all of the food choices, but to just take a risk and go out there and try something new. It's such an amazing experience. It really, honestly, travel helps your creativity by helping you find who you are. That's really where I'm at in this point in my journey is self-discovery and finding what I love, what makes me tick every day, and what pushes me forth to create the designs that I have in my mind, or any of the actual visions that I have and making them real life. I always like to take from any experience that I went to another country, or even just a little trip somewhere different in the United States. I always like to take a little piece of that and to be able to incorporate it into any of the visions that I have. I think that it's beautiful because I'm finding out who I am. It's going to build my confidence. I know that what I've seen, I can make it happen. And each one of those little things really starts to build who you actually are. And it, like you said, it just definitely builds your vision and then the path that you want to go on. So often I talk to people, and that's kind of the normal conversation that I have right now, because I am in that point of my life of identifying who I am and what I want to be, where I want to go. And you'd be amazed to find that there's so many people who don't know who they are or what they want in life. And by traveling somewhere and leaving all of your electronic devices, leaving all your work behind, and just really being in the here and now and enjoying every moment, you're forced to sit and think about all the small things in life of where you want to be, who you want to be, what's your real desires. And I think that that's something that you could never ever pay for. It's something that happens, and finding the ways to identify who you are is the key to having an absolutely happy life. And so traveling, you have that opportunity to really sit and reflect and figure out who you are. One of the amazing things that I found when kind of reviewing a lot of different topics about how travel is intertwined with creativity, I found an amazing study that was by Dr. Lyle Gia. He's reviewing a lot of different topics about how travel is intertwined with creativity. So one of the studies that they did, they took 65 students from an Indiana university. And so there was 2 control groups that they gave. And the first one, they told the group that they wanted to see what their modes of transportation was, and that these questions were coming from somebody who was actually from the university in their local area. And then the second group, they gave the same questions of finding modes of transportation, but they told the group that those questions were gathered from students that were studying abroad in Greece. And amazingly enough, even though it was the same questions asked, the students that were told that the questions came from people in Greece had way more options of modes of transportation, and just the detail that they went into, it was very much more creative. And so it kind of connects this far away thinking. And then the group that was the control group from thinking that the questions came from the actual university right there, not as many answers and definitely a little bit less creative. And so it's just something that it's almost kind of a mental trick, just picturing yourself in a different place, and all of those people, it seems like as if they went into a whole different trip on their own, thinking about anything and everything that's possible. So it's pretty amazing to see the differences and actually see it proven in studies. There's tons of different studies out there that have shown the same thing, or people who have lived in places, maybe 3 or more places, and actually dug into the cultures and really experienced life. They've actually shown to have way more creativity and to be able to have visions that they actually put to life. So they're taking all of those same things of productivity and self-confidence and really knowing who they are and putting it towards their creativity in whatever aspect of life that they may be doing it. And so it's neat because, again, like I said, it just unlocks that little piece that we were waiting to have unlocked in our brain. All of us are born creative. It's just finding a way to actually make it happen and make it more dominant in our lives. So kind of the science behind how travel really makes us creative. It's based off of neuroplasticity, which is how the brain is wired. So there's so many different pathways that are stimulated when we change different things in our lives. So something as simple as the influences of your daily habits. Again, where you go, what's your normal A to Z of what you do in a day. New sounds, new smells, new languages, tastes, sensations, sights. I think about all of these because when I'm telling people about stories that I've had experiences with everything, I always go back to that. I always say, I felt so awake, so alive, so calm. Those sensations are very different when you take yourself out of a comfort zone and experience life in a whole different way. Or I'll think about the smells. There's so many locations that I went to that I can still to this day just envision what it smelled like. Anything from if it was a place that had kind of a stinky garbage smell, all the way to maybe beautiful spices and flowers that they might have had there. And then of course my favorite part is the food. Any of the tastes that I've had, so often I find myself just craving something that I've had in another country. It's so amazing because it's not a normal thing that you have on a day-to-day basis, but your body becomes so used to it and wants it on, it craves whatever it is. And then the sights. I always just think about so many things that I saw. Everything from beautiful sunrises and sunsets to maybe how the landscape looked in a certain area. It might have been, I think about one of my favorite places, which is in the Azores. It's a chain of islands off of the coast of Portugal. And my first thing that I remember when I got there was how amazing it looked. It almost had this mixture of some foreign Latin country and a mix of Ireland. It was so lush and green. There was just beautiful small stone homes everywhere, and then all you could see was just amazing green grass and moss everywhere. And still to this day I just think of how vibrant the colors were, how beautiful it was. The smells, even though it did have its fun smells since there was cows everywhere, it definitely had its interesting smells, but just the smells of nature. And I kind of just take time and sit back and try to remember that. By doing that, I always find myself a little bit more engaged and ready to be creative in something. So anytime I find myself just kind of in a lull and I'm thinking, oh man, I can't get through this, I don't know how to make this happen, I had a picture in my mind and now it's just not really happening, I kind of go back through those things that influenced me in different areas. And then once I kind of almost submerge myself into a mini vacation and remembering what happened, I find that I'm very much more motivated to get out there and design something, make it happen. Or those little pieces that didn't connect the first time are now all of a sudden starting to connect. So I do really believe that travel has such an amazing effect on how we're creative. So if you find yourself that you want to do a job that requires a little bit of creativity, ask yourself, have I traveled? Have I lived somewhere different? Have I experienced different cultures? Maybe it might just be as simple as going and living somewhere in a different state, kind of living abroad, either foreign or here, and just submerging yourself in the way that that culture lives. And you'd probably be amazed that your creativity will just skyrocket out. I think it's such a neat thing that we have the power to be able to adjust what we think, what we believe, and really having that power over pushing in the direction that we want to go. So often people say, I can never do that job, I can't do this, I'm not that person, I'm not creative. So again, I tell people, just go out there and see what all that the world has to offer, and you'd be amazed at how much it sparks your imagination, kind of makes everything just fall in place, or it might just be something as simple as finding the real happiness that kind of unlocks what you've been looking for your whole life. So to touch back on the productivity, if you're that person that you have that normal 9-to-5 job and you just kind of push through, today's Monday, I gotta push it all the way through to Friday, maybe taking that valuable time off and going somewhere simple. I know a lot of people, they don't have the budget to take them on an amazing vacation somewhere, but I always like to tell people that vacations and travel doesn't have to be to a foreign country. It can be as simple as just finding an area of town that you're not used to. For us that live here in Arizona, there's so much cultural diversity here, and in any city you can go to a different area of town that you might not have ever been and find yourself at an amazing little mom and pop restaurant. I know recently I found myself going out to an appointment in Central Phoenix, and I came across a brand new little small Mexican place and ended up meeting some amazing people who have great stories, were so willing to bring me into their culture and tell me about their foods and kind of how it's made and different things like that. I would have never thought to just go to a place like that that was brand new opening, didn't really have any reviews or anything, but just by taking a chance, I was driving by and I thought, maybe I'll just stop in here and see what it has to offer. And still I think about that little experience that I had, somebody who was welcoming into their culture and wanted me to live life a little bit like them and see the beauty of their world. So I ask everyone, just go outside of your comfort zone. It helps you to be way more open-minded and find new, beautiful things that you've never really experienced in your life. Travel doesn't have to be crazy expensive or long-term. It can be something just very simple. Just find what makes you happy, and once you start getting out of your comfort zone, you'd be amazed at how easy it is and how much you actually want to do it. I find myself pretty much wanting to travel every day. If my bank account would let me, I would definitely do it. But I know that this is an important part to unlocking all that creativity that I have in my mind, and I hope that maybe just some of this information might help somebody out there and to figure out the direction that they wanted to go in any creative field. I mean, it could be something design or graphic design or maybe even architecture. You have the power to be as creative as you want to be. It just takes that time and a little bit of self-exploration, finding out who you are. So thank you, and that's what our topic was for today, was why traveling makes us creative. Next week we'll have some more treasures in mind, so stay tuned and we'll see you then.